you ask a prosecutor, what are some questions that come to your mind when you get a file, right, with a new case? And the questions that pop up often are, what law was broken, who broke it, and how should that person be punished, right? So the paradigm shift that restorative justice calls us to is a completely different set of questions. It starts with, who is harmed, and what do they need, and whose obligation is it to meet those needs, right? So it's victim-centered, but it's also about accountability in a way that can make things right.
I was in the victim offender education group for 1 year. It was a 1-year process. I never looked at the things that happened in my household as a factor into how I got to the point where I can do the worst things I can ever do to another human being. And I had to look at this cycle that I have years spinning, continually going through emotions and unhealthy emotions and engaging in certain behavior over and over again. And the last piece of the group is we call it victim awareness, but it's like it also challenged me to look at what I did. How did I impact that person, the person's family, the community, and I even go too far as the universe. I never thought about the fact that because of what I did, that certain people on that block maybe moved out, certain people on that block maybe didn't let their kids play outside anymore. The fact that people may be scared of people who look like me now, and many other different things, and it's a ripple effect. So we just keep on going. I never thought about the fact that my mom would have to sit before people and explain why that I was incarcerated, the shame that came up for her. Didn't think about that. That at the end, we finished with a surrogate panel where we all sit in circle with 2 people who have lost loved ones, either to homicide or been victimized themselves. In that circle, seeing what they talked about, seeing the tears and the emotions and how their world changed, it really, really touched me. I never actually sat in a circle or sat in a process where people actually explain how, the fact that they lost someone disrupted their life forever. And seeing the tears and emotions, at that point I knew, what? I can never ever do something like that again.
So when we engage in restorative justice circles, we create this transformative space. And it's the job of the facilitator, not so much to make sure that his or her agenda gets covered, or that certain outcomes are achieved. It's all about creating a safe space where everyone feels that they can speak from their heart with respect, where everyone feels they can share their deepest feelings and stories with one another. So we may open the space with some sort of centering and grounding exercise, whether it's prayer or meditation or breathing or qigong. And then we engage in trust-building exercises, some kind of icebreaker, and then we agree upon shared values. How do we want to have this conversation? Well, I need people not to be judgmental of me, because if I feel that someone is judgmental, then the words aren't going to come. They're going to get stuck here, so I won't be able to speak from my heart. So we agree on the values: trust, compassion, love,
humility, respect, integrity, generosity, courage, and empathy, and fortitude. And so in doing a circle and reminding people that we can all access those values, and the circle actually helps us remember those values and gives us a place to practice them.
We reach out to the crime victim and we say, we would like to meet with you to discuss how you were harmed and what you need. Shockingly, we don't often hear people say, I need to see that kid locked up. There are all of these things that victims need that we don't meet in our current system, right? And the primary one is actually answers to questions like, were you sneaking out my house? Or why did you pick me? Or even in the more serious cases, like what were my daughter's last words? It's about us all fleshing out the truth. The victim has an opportunity to ask direct questions, and then every single person in the room has an opportunity to talk about how they were impacted by this crime, including the supporters of the victim, the family members and community members that have come to support the young person to make it right. And then the young person and their parents or their guardians, whoever takes care of them, step out of the room and they produce a draft of a plan. Every part of that plan has to be specific, measurable, attainable, restorative, or related to the underlying offense, and timely.
One of the things the victim's family needs to know is there remorse? Are you sorry? Do you know the impact of what you did to me and to my family? And the same way with the one who did the harm. The one who did the harm needs to be held accountable, but not demonized, not labeled as a thug or a thief or a killer, but rather held accountable, but with support and care of a community. That you still belong to us. We do not isolate you. We're not banishing you. We just want you to be held accountable. That's very important for all of us, is to feel that connectedness still, even though we may have done harm.
So the notion of this work is really grounded in a philosophy that hurt people. And in order to actually heal those harms and those hurts, you have to go to the root of the hurt. And when you go to the root of the hurt, you start healing those hurts. And when you heal those hurts, you can then heal yourself and heal other people. So hurt people transforms into healed people, healing other people.
In the Dakota language, Nabi Kichopi it literally means calling back the spirit. But that was the process that you went through for dealing with trauma. That you went through a process of bringing your community together and surrounding you and helping you, working with you for a period of time. And then it was marked at the end by a ceremony called Nabi Kichopi. I love the concept of calling back the spirit, because in my understanding, that's what happens when you go through something traumatic. It makes your spirit shrink, or maybe even go away. And so there has to be a way of restoring that spirit back to its fullness to help you walk in balance.
We met when he was 15. And he came to us, bald head tattooed, clicked up pretty heavy in the neighborhood, doing work, pretty angry. When he found out he was going to be a father, something sparked. But it also brought back the recollection that his father died when he was 2, and the anger that he felt, and the emptiness that he felt of not having a father. He came to a program where we were working with teen fathers, and we welcomed him. He shares now that it was uncomfortable for me, for people they didn't know me, and they greeted me and they called me Miko, which means my son. He says, and a man had not called me that. I didn't have a man that called me son. And I came to a program that 4 men called me son. And they treated me like they knew me all my life. And they treated me like they loved me. And I couldn't understand, and I had difficulty, because why were they treating me so good? Why were they welcoming me? Don't they see my tats? Don't they see my bald head? Don't they see what I'm about? And it wasn't until then that I realized that all of that was to keep people away, so they wouldn't really see the scared little boy, the abandoned little boy, the angry little boy, the little boy that felt unworthy and unvalued.
One of the most beautiful things about Circle is it's a space for shared vulnerability. And I feel like the reason this is so important for young men is because we're not allowed that space anywhere else in society. We're not allowed this space to really open up. So when you're offered that space of shared vulnerability and other people begin to open up around you, it's almost inevitable that you will too open up. And even if you didn't want to, I've seen guys in circles, the peace will come around to them twice and they won't say anything. They'll act like they're too cool, but by the third go around, they start sharing with them. And by the fourth time it gets to them, then they're really bringing it out. And maybe by the fifth time, you might even see some tears coming out of their eyes. Because we all need this space to kind of unload ourselves.
Say those things because it shows your heart. And after it shows your heart, it can heal. We're not going to be able to heal your heart until you show it to us. And once you show it to us and we can heal it, you can never do that thing that you did again. But if you hide it behind lies and deception, it's going to always be hidden and we'll never be able to see it. Therefore, we'll never be able to heal it.
For the past 5 years, I've worked in a restorative justice inspired and trauma healing inspired process inside different prisons in California and also Massachusetts. There was a man in our group who, the first time he walked in the group, he said, "I'm evil." For the first 10 weeks, actually, he said, "I'm just an evil dude." Where he got to was to be able to connect back to his past and to see that his mother was a sex worker. And he had a deep love for his mother. His mother saved his life at a really young age when his father tried to kill him. And he loved her and he wanted to protect her. And he also grew up in an incredibly violent neighborhood. One day, I'll never forget this, we were sitting in a circle and he pinpointed the moment that everything changed for him. I asked him, "Can you remember a time where you didn't think you were evil?" And he said, "I was 7 years old and I was sitting on the couch and I was sitting next to my mother and it was raining outside and I was watching TV. And I didn't think I was evil. But in that moment, something changed. And I decided that I was going to be the type of guy that nobody would ever mess with. Nobody would ever hurt me. Nobody would ever hurt my mother. And nobody would ever hurt anybody that I loved." That was his turning point into a life of quote-unquote crime. Now, the healing is his understanding of that trajectory and his being able to pinpoint it and then make those choices to say that's not really who I am anymore and that's not who I want to be when I get out of here.
Young people are not well served by being in detention facilities or being in cells. They are well served by being around caring adults who can respond to their specific needs, who understand they have been harmed, and who can help them facilitate their own capacity to respond to their own healing. We need other adults in safe spaces in community. It can be a school, it can be a hospital, it can be a faith institution, it can be someone's home. We've seen all of these places work as alternative spaces for there to be trained adults who are therapists, who are counselors, who are educators, who are healers, and who bring a culturally competent response and way of engaging with young people about how they facilitate their own wellness.
We received a case about a stolen car. And we reached out to the young person, and he pretty quickly took responsibility for it. So we reached out to the victim, and the victim was extremely unhappy that the case had been diverted. And she brought a friend with her that day, and he said, "I would really love for you to move forward. I'd really like to meet with this young man too." And so on the day of the conference, it was very powerful. Her friend leans in and he says, "I know you because I used to be you." And he proceeds to tell the most powerful story about how he himself got caught up in stealing cars and it derailed his life and how he got his life back on track. And as if the rest of the room disappeared, and this young man and this man who turned his life around engaged in a dialogue about how does one turn one's life around. So what makes you happy? What do you believe in, about yourself? Or what are you good at? And the kid pops up and he says, "I'm a really good artist." And his mother starts laughing. And she says, "You can't pay this woman back $4,000 with your art." And just then the victim jumps in and she says, "Oh, yes, he can. Yes, he can, actually. If he paints me a Tinkerbell as tall as I am, I'll forgive all the debt." And we're all looking at her like, "A Tinkerbell? Sorry, did she say Tinkerbell?" Some people might say, oh, that's soft on crime, he stole a car and he gets to paint something. But if that's what the victim wanted, and that's what keeps him out of trouble for the rest of his life, then we should be really happy about Tinkerbell.
When we go into jurisdictions, I believe change can happen because people in those systems that have the levers of power are realizing that the few choices they have don't serve the community, don't serve the public and public safety, and don't serve the young people that are before them. So they understand that the system that they're in is just processing misery, and so you can process misery in a courtroom painted blue, process misery in a courtroom painted pink, but it doesn't matter, you're still processing misery. So folks are looking for answers. How do we get away from custody, control, and suppression as a way to get communities safe and go more towards humanity, restoration, and services?
We can end juvenile incarceration if we adopted restorative justice as a system-wide alternative. If we're going to be looking at either as an entire systems change or as a diversion model, there needs to be the political will from district attorneys, police departments, probation departments to divert the cases, to divert serious cases. And as we start to have more and more data that shows that even with serious cases, even more so with serious cases, we're extremely effective as compared to the system, that should be a call to the system to divert more cases.
And Ozzy has been with us about 16 years, and now he's a grandfather. And he's one of our most powerful teachers, and we still call him Mijo. And he's part of our relation. But to me, what Ozzy represents is that sacredness that is in all wounded people. Wounded young men, wounded older men, wounded women, wounded moms, wounded grandmas, wounded politicians, wounded police, wounded probation officers.
So the program has an 11.8% recidivism rate. And that's with burglaries, robberies, carjacks, teen dating violence, sexual assaults, serious cases. And we did a comparative matched sample for kids, even who just get probation for the same kinds of crime, have a 31.8% recidivism rate. So this is a 20% reduction. And we know that if youth are actually later incarcerated, right, in life, that rises to like 75, even 90% recidivism rates. And so this is sort of derailing that train of ever increasing recidivism moving forward. The other really exciting statistic is that 99% of victims say that if they were victimized again, that they would prefer this model of addressing the harm that they experienced.
I never thought that I would actually engage in restorative justice when I got out. It wasn't my plan. This work isn't just for me giving back. It isn't just something that I just want to do. It's part of my healing. I need this. I can't move forward without it. I have a hole in my heart that can never be filled. I have to do this. A probation officer asked me this. How do you move forward? How can you go out and have fun and enjoy these experiences knowing that you took somebody's life? And it was a tough question, but I just spoke from my heart and I just said, I feel like there's two choices. I can hide under a rock and be depressed and never come out again, or I can go out and try to do the best I can to help out the community, help out young people in any way that I can. When I choose that, I choose to go out into the community.
It's important that children participate in restorative practices, that they understand its context, and that they can give their own content to it. And whenever I talk to school children and teenagers who have restorative practices in their middle and high schools, the culture of the school is different. So much healing occurs. And I think if this was built into elementary schools in a very simple way, to preschool in a very simple way, we would be preventing harm for generations.
Love is really the commandments. Love is the healing. But it's not this symbolic words. It's love is work. Love is sacrifice. Love is truth. Love is your ability to really look at what is real and then make a commitment to make it more pure, make it more sacred. That's the true work. That's the true social justice work.
I first want to say, this is it, and we got to come responsible before everybody goes. I want to say this has been the most amazing showing that we've done of this. We've done about 5 or 6, done in about 3 churches. We had good audiences and that kind of thing. But in terms of the intensity of the feeling in the room of people paying attention to what they were looking at and being open to what that was causing, y'all have been amazing. I was looking for folks to be, kind of going up, going around, doing some other stuff and leaving and all that. But this has really been an amazing moment for the fact that we didn't have any refreshments in here. We didn't have anything to offer you, but yet you hung on that. So I think you ought to give yourself a hand. But that's been amazing. Yes, this is a generous distribution of age and all of that in here. Okay, now we want to wind it up and say thank you for what you've done, and also to hear from these 2 brothers as we prepare to close. But I just want to thank you for your presence here tonight.
Everybody, we got to thank our speakers tonight. Please, let's go with one more hand. Now, let's see. I want to make sure I adhere to the schedule. So we're wrapping up right now. You said 2 more. Okay, so I wasn't looking to do anything except pause the video, so I could just yield the floor to you right now, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Take your spot. But yeah, we can go right to it. Is that all right with everybody?
Yeah, but I'd ask him to kind of give a 10, 15 minute clip of what his experience has been as one who has been in the process of finding his own healing, and how he has been committed to doing some work in the community in order to increase the healing and reduce the harm, and starting from what it had happened in him.
Okay. All right. I yield the floor. Thank you, sir.
How's everybody doing today? My name is John Kimmich Shabazz L. And I want to start off first by giving thanks to the people that made it possible for me to be here, as well as the ancestors. And we would say Ashe, which is an African word that just means we affirm and we give praise. And I also want to thank Lita Shepard and Reverend Ron English for inviting me to come out and speak to you all, as well as the local people, local NAACP. My story starts off with me being a wrongfully convicted fella working on my criminal appeal, incarcerated at the state's maximum security facility at Moundsville. This would be back in 1984. And at that time, I was 18, 19 years old. And I had an attitude. I was angry because I had been convicted. I always believed I was wrongfully convicted, and I had anger as a result of it. And I sought to intellectualize my rage, and I began to study in the prison law library, and I came in contact, which was a circle of people that are working in the law library. I came in contact with those people. And they assisted me in my criminal appeal. But the part that I want to build that's relevant to today's discussion is I had got myself in trouble and got isolated because of my anger and my rage. What happened was a prison guard walked up on me, and I was set up, walked up on me, looked at me and told me, "You need to shave." And I laughed, and as I moved to walk away, he quickly stepped in front of me, and I got charged with assault. And this guy had used that same setup with several other prisoners, but I ended up having to get isolated in the notorious North Hall section of the prison. And it was difficult. Everybody knew that if you go to North Hall, you could be rolled out of there in a box. And I was young, angry. Because of the work that I had done on my criminal appeal, I was called back to court. And while I was in court, January 1st, 1986, the prison was taken over, and there was a riot there. And I was out in court, and I was looking at this, and I was like, man, I was just over on isolation with the most dangerous guys. You know, I was up there, I would need some help. And it had a serious impact on me. When I say a serious impact, people were killed, and there was trauma at the facility. So, you know, the state Supreme Court had appointed me attorneys, and I got in contact with them. I said, look, I don't want to have to go back over there and be in the midst of that, because I wasn't there. I had heard about they were going to take the prison, and I was actually in support of Crane versus Bordenkercher, which was the lawsuit that the prisoners filed against the facility as a result of unlawful conditions. So I was in support of that, and I was a little bit of a headache to the prison administration. But the attorneys told me, man, the prison says that when you go back, you're going to have to go back to isolation. And at that time, so I come back from court, I go to isolation, and I get moved from South Hall to North Hall in the middle of the winter. And this is very traumatic. It was Gestapo style. 3:30 in the morning, get up, pack your stuff, you're moving. And it was about 100 of us that was moved from South Hall to North Hall as a result of the aftermath of the prison takeover, the prison riot. And I got caught in the midst of it. And I got, for the prison guard setting me up, I actually got about 9 months lockup time for that. And by the time the takeover had went down, I had served that time. But what happened was the prison administration threw me in the midst of all those that took over the prison. And I had to make a decision right then.